Back again with another top five. So I had so much fun doing the last top five about the scariest movies that really freaked me out as a kid that it got me thinking about a lot of other top fives I could do. And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, here we were on the 4th of July, and it got the wheels a turning about what were my personal favorite 4th of July movies. And then I started to kind of dig a little deeper into that, and I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Is it going to be something that's, the theme is around the 4th of July? Was it released on the 4th of July? Is it patriotic? Kind of what are the parameters for this top five? And to be honest, I couldn't come up with anything that was going to be a hard and fast good rule, except for the fact that this is going to be my top five favorite movies or movies that make me think about the 4th of July. So for me, really, it's going to be a combination of the themes that are within the movie itself, as well as the release date, and also just my association with the movie. So some of these are ones that maybe don't have a ton to do with the 4th of July, but for me, it's something that I watched a lot around the 4th of July, or I have some very specific memories of them associated with the 4th of July. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to get into my list of top five 4th of July movies. These aren't necessarily going to be in order, but they're pretty close. There's just a little hiccup there about halfway through where I had to change the ranking of one based on it's going to win all of my list if I don't. So there's your little hint. All right, starting with number five, we actually have a number four in the series. We have Rocky IV. This is actually the 1985 classic featuring Sylvester Stallone as he takes on Dolph Lundgren and, if not, the entirety of Russia. Okay, so this is the movie that single-handedly ended the Cold War. No, it didn't really, but I love everything about this movie. I was a big Rocky fan growing up of the series. I got more into the earlier Rockies, Rocky 1, Rocky 2. I watched them growing up, but they were a lot slower and a lot more dramatic, which is what they're meant to be. But Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 was where I made my money as a kid, and Rocky 4 specifically with the training montages are just fantastic with the music that's there, everything. It's spot on. I mean, you have a lot of drama that happens there with Carl Weathers having a, little mishap with Dolph, and then it's literally the U.S. versus Russia, and I hope we all learned something from how Rocky handled that and how the end of the movie went. It was a very powerful movie, also very patriotic in my eyes, and definitely made me feel really good, and I watched it a lot, specifically around that time of year. So it definitely is one that just is high on my list of top 4th of July movies.
Get up, you son of a bitch!
All those fighters you beat them with heart!
Get up! Get up!
Get up.
Moving on to number four, this one's going to be a little different. This is where we're going to start to get to the individuality of everybody's list. So if you're thinking about your own list, it's probably going to be a little different than mine. Number four for me is actually 1997 classic, depending on your point of view. I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's right, this is the Kevin Williamson written movie, the same guy that wrote Scream, and it came out slightly afterwards, and he was on the tails of all that success, and I really enjoyed this movie. This one and the sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I know they made several sequels after that I did not even watch because they just didn't look good. But the first two, and specifically the first one, I absolutely love. This one has a stellar cast. I mean, you have everybody from Jennifer Love Hewitt to Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr. You've got a lot of star power, especially at the time in this movie. And it was a good script. I mean, it was very kind of a murder mystery kind of thing of whodunit. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. You should definitely go check it out. But that's centered around events that happened on the 4th of July for these group of high school graduates that are getting ready to go to college, and then something happens. If you haven't seen it, there's a murder, and then stuff happens. Go watch it. It's actually really good. But then the next year around the same 4th of July, and it's like New England town. I think it's a fisherman town because they have like a pageant, they have parades and stuff like that. So it always really made me think a lot about the 4th of July. Even though this one was a little bit later, I seen this one more in my middle school, high school years, but I still really enjoy this one. It still makes me think of 4th of July. Moving on to number three, this is the one I was kind of referring to earlier, and the fact that I had to not put this at the top of my list just because I don't want every list to have the same number one, and that is, of course, Jaws. Jaws is one of, if not my favorite movies ever. It shifts around from bit to bit, and when we're talking about different movies, they're like, oh man, this one's also really good, but it's consistently just a fantastic movie. And of course, this one takes place and focuses on the summer in Amity, and that just kind of rings true. I mean, it was one of the first big summer blockbusters, if not the first big one. I think that may have actually been where they created the term blockbuster in summer of 75 when people were waiting to go see this one. Also caused some mass hysteria and some panic on some coastal towns across the world, so it's a pretty impactful movie. I've said enough about Jaws. I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic movie. Ton to do with the 4th of July, so I had to put it on the list, but I tried to not put it at the top of the list just to have some more suspense as well. But it could be hand in hand with number 1. Really close.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Number 2, we're coming back to another classic, and this one I kind of struggled with a bit, just in the fact of more recent events that I've chosen to not partake in a lot of this individual's movies, but this one, I just can't escape it when it comes to, when I think of 4th of July, big movies, summer, fun, all that stuff. It was the 1996 classic Independence Day. So yes, this is Will Smith, this is Jeff Goldblum. I mean, this has so many people in it, and it's just such a fantastic big summer movie. I mean, this was prime time Big Will, and this time there was not much better going on in the theater. I mean, I was of course young, and I just loved seeing it. I mean, it's a great movie. The subsequent sequel I did watch and did not enjoy really at all, and kind of wish I had not watched it. But the first one, I will still go back and watch. I mean, it's such good storytelling. I mean, it's all this setup, there's suspense, there's a bunch of different stories that are interwoven together that come together in a climactic, very cool apex scene and fight against the alien invading horde, which are also very creepy. I mean, that's a creepy movie and creepy concept when you think about it, but the movie's really good. The acting is really good. I mean, it was a big spectacle. In retrospect, how they ended it with a little floppy disk being compatible with alien species that travels interstellarly, maybe not the most realistic, but at the same time, I don't care. It was fun. So Independence Day is my number 2.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
And the number 1 for me, and this is again a very subjective and personal list, it actually has to be the 1985 classic Silver Bullet. If you're unfamiliar with Silver Bullet, I don't really blame you because it's not a huge movie. I'm also pretty excited for you because that means you can go experience it for the first time. So this does star Corey Haim of 80s fame in general, and Gary Busey are the prime ones that are there, and this is based off of a Stephen King book or novella short story, and it was Cycle of the Werewolf. And if you haven't guessed from the Cycle of the Werewolf or the Silver Bullet name, this is a movie about a werewolf. But what really makes this a 4th of July movie for me was I seen this movie for the first time over the summer when I was visiting family, and it's forever just going to be like a summertime movie for me, even though it actually spans the entirety of, I think, a calendar year, or it's kind of taking place on each different month when the full moon comes up, so hence the werewolf stuff. But there is a very crucial and pivotal scene that really pushed it over the top to make sure that it was going to be number 1 for me. And if you've seen the movie, you know what this is. This is when Marty, or Corey Haim's character, actually comes into contact with said werewolf, and because he was out shooting fireworks alone because his Uncle Red, aka Gary Busey, told him to, or didn't tell him to, but got him fireworks so he could do that, ends up rocketing the werewolf right in the eye, and that actually helps set the mystery or the detective part of the movie up. And then from then on, it's trying to figure out who is that werewolf, and I just absolutely love it. The special effects in the movie, yeah, they hold up okay. I mean, it's a pretty violent one. It's not super bloody, though, in retrospect. I mean, the blood that you do see doesn't necessarily look super realistic, so I think you'll be okay watching this with some younger ones. I mean, I watched it really young, but I'm also a little weird, and that explains why I have a lot of things like I do around me. Really good movie. The werewolf himself is an interesting design. That was something that Stephen King and the director, I think, bumped heads on a lot, and they actually ended up switching directors and getting another one towards the end. It was a whole convoluted story, but I really enjoy the movie, and I rewatch it frequently, more than I need to, but there's just something about it that makes me think 4th of July. So for me, it had to be at the top of my list. Now, I know that's a very random way of putting together the list, but at the same time, it's my subjective list, so it is what it is. But based on the feedback I got from the top scariest movies growing up, I'm very curious to see what other people's experience are with more 4th of July movies for them, or top 4th of July movies. I mean, again, because you could have any sort of criteria for what that means, and I probably just didn't think of them, because I was thinking of these and I was like, these are my list, but I don't know if there's a bunch of really good 4th of July movies, or maybe I'm just missing some. So let me know in the comment section, what are you guys' favorites, and which ones am I really missing out on? Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Go to that subscribe button if you would. That'd be fantastic. And as always, you're awesome. Peace out.